Lyanna, this is Marge. Can you hear me?
Oh. We can hear you, Marge.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. We have 9 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Was the meeting properly noticed?
Yes, it was.
Clerk, please take roll.
All members are present with Marge Edwards online.
Okay, we have the agenda before us. Are there any changes in the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda will stand approved as posted. Are there any changes in the minutes from April 4th? Okay, seeing none, those minutes will stand approved as posted too. We'll allow public participation as we go through. Action items, resolution on opioid funds. Finance Director, are you taking this or who's taking it? Oh, okay. Health and Human Services Director and Sheriff.
Okay. So Sheriff York is going to pass out a handout about peer support. It's from SAMHSA. He's also passing out a brochure about Three Bridges recovery. So we have a resolution before you to utilize opioid settlement funds for peer support. We're asking to expand peer support here in Adams County. Peer support is an evidence-based practice that is well supported and viewed as very supportive for people who are working through recovery. Peer support is a process where individuals who have had prolonged periods of success in recovery help other people who are trying to achieve recovery. They're able to provide emotional support, practical guidance. They're available for phone calls when they're working through serious challenges. Peer support can be available 24/7, 365 days a week, or it feels like it, 365 days a year. There are certification requirements for people to become certified in peer support. You can either become a certified peer support specialist or a recovery coach. There are trainings provided through the Department of Health Services, as well as some regulatory considerations for those to be certified. Right now, there is some peer support available in Adams County on a pretty limited basis. We have peer support in the treatment court. It's about 20 hours a week. Since implementing peer support, that has definitely been one of the biggest, probably one of the best services we've added to complement that array of programming in the treatment court. It really provides people with someone who understands the challenges they're going through, someone who has been in their shoes, someone who has faced similar challenges and feelings and despair. And a peer support coach also provides people with hope and inspiration that, in some of your darkest days, there can be light at the end of the tunnel, and you can do it. You can find sustained recovery. So what we're asking for is to use some of the opioid funds. We're asking to use about $107,000 a year for 3 years to pilot a peer support program. We would come up with some metrics to determine how we could evaluate the success of the program. I think there's ability to share some information and be able to determine how many people are utilizing the service and how successful is this. While also remembering that recovery is hard, and people don't just get fixed. It takes time and resources. So we would be asking for $107,500 annually for 3 years. We will do data collection to evaluate the effectiveness of the program. This program would provide programming in the jail through peer recovery. It's a model. They would do that in the jail. They would offer 2 groups a week, a men's group and a women's group. They would also be able to do peer or recovery group out in the community, as well as one-on-one peer support. One of the reasons we're looking at Three Bridges is because they are really well known in central Wisconsin right now, and they're in several counties, as well as several of their jails providing programming. They have a very robust supervision program, so all of the individuals who are providing peer support services are required to check in and have that support with a supervisor to make sure that they're healthy, they're doing okay, as well as a place to just decompress. This work can be really challenging. So we like their training model. We like their administration process. We like the support, the training, and the fact that they are well established in the community. Sheriff, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, thanks. I think just a couple things. I'm not sure if Kelly hit on it when I was handing it out, the flyers out, but um, a while ago we looked at in peer support like some of the greatest needs, and from the opioid. Did you hit on this? Okay, and so one of the things that came up consistently with all the different groups was peer support. So peer support in the community, peer support in the jail. So part of the committee or panel that put that survey together went into the jail and they asked inmates, what is your need? What could help you to reintegrate back in the community? What are your needs while incarcerated? And all of those were peer support with that and support recovery, everything that went along with the peer support. And so yeah, in the jail right now, we just recently started some NA, but we have no formal peer support available while the persons are incarcerated while in the jail. So this would be a great resource for us to have while they're incarcerated to help reintegrate them back into the community to be productive, as well as we've had to increase our mental health needs in the jail, and a lot of that is because while they're incarcerated, they're going through struggles of withdrawing and just all the they understand where they're at, where their life is and things like that, and the peer support is the one thing that can help get them back and to be a productive member of society. And I think, unless Kelly was going to mention it lastly, that it's one of the approved uses from the opioid settlement funds. And if I remember correctly, when one of the other meetings quite a while ago, I remember comments about peer support and if we were going to get that. And so we are here today asking for this peer support. It's I guess I would say like several multi layers. There's like I said, in the jail while in the community as well, and they work together. So if they're incarcerated, they meet the peer support person, they are providing some resources there, and then they get out, they already have that contact person that's a sober person helping give that peer support while they're back out. So I think that's all that I had to add.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm just going to add that in my administrator's report, for those who are online and didn't get this handout, there is a live link in my report.
Supervisor Paler?
Just a question for Sheriff Bjork. Are we still using that drug school? Is that still available? And are we going to discontinue that if we go to this peer support?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm not sure what the drug school.
Drug school or drug court?
Drug, yeah.
Oh
drug
yes,
court.
drug court. Yes, we still do have that. Kelly could probably talk more about that.
Okay, go ahead, Human Service Director.
Yeah, the peer support would really be something separate and distinct from treatment court. Treatment court would continue with its grant that helps to pay for peer support. That peer support is specific only to treatment court participants, which makes it challenging for those who are not eligible for treatment court or are not yet in the criminal justice system. So this would be separate and distinct from what's being done in treatment court.
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Paler.
Another little follow-up question. Okay, this is $107,000 a year for 3 years. Is there a sunset at 3 years? What happens after 3 years?
Go ahead.
So our hope is for those 3 years is that we can look at the sustainability of this program by gathering information and metrics and data. Our hope is we will be able to determine the effectiveness of implementing peer support in Adams County. If it's showing to be really successful, we would need to work to figure out how we could maybe stand that up or sustain that through different funding, or look at, is this so valuable that we need to come back and ask for something else? But right now, it is just scheduled for 3 years. And if there's not a sustainability plan, I assume it would sunset.
I mean, is it a 3-year contract that we have to, or can we, like, if we don't see results after 2 years?
I would assume that we would contract annually and have clauses within our contract like we do with other programs, that if it's not effective, we could terminate at some
Okay.
point.
Okay. Supervisor Pease?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's what I was gonna ask too, is if we could have an annual report to the whole county board so they know how our money is being spent and how many contacts are gonna be made per year.
Are you reporting this to the Health and Human Services Committee or
We
the
could
public
re- we-
PS&J or?
I like the idea of PS&J.
That's because of the chair.
Yeah.
But I do think that we should have an annual report to see where it is. I thought maybe opioid settlement work group or the opioid settlement alone was gonna be continuing for the next 20 years, so we may be getting more money, or I'm mistaken.
No, if we go on forward analytics, you can actually see all the payments that are slated to come per
Oh.
county.
So it might not, we might be able to fund it even through 3 years if we believe it's available to the people of Adams County.
Right.
So, thank you.
Supervisor Kubarski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what exactly is this 418,000 being used for? I mean, what is the actual money spent on?
Health and Human Services Director?
So let me see if I can quickly pull that up. Broadly, it is for programming in the jail. It would be to provide 2 recovery support specialists in the jail to run 2 groups twice a week. So they'd be running a men's group and a women's group. I believe each group is 2 hours each. They would also run a recovery support group in the community, and then an additional 20 hours a week of peer support for those who need the support. So peer support could look at like phone calls in the middle of the night. It could look like meeting someone for coffee. It could be giving someone a ride because they finally decided they want to get treatment. So it would be a minimum of 20 hours a week. We would only be billed for the services they provide. So if they did not meet the 20 hours a week of peer support, or they weren't able to do a group, we would not be charged for that. It would also include their training as well as supervision of the program.
So Kelly, this is to actually hire this peer group?
Contract, yes, go ahead.
It would be to contract with Three Bridges. We feel it would be really important to contract this service as opposed to having this as a hired county position. There's a lot of bias in coming through Health and Human Services doors or reaching out maybe to someone who works in the sheriff's department, because there's that fear of someone's going to know my secrets. So by contracting this with an entity that is outside of the county makes the most logical sense.
Yes, Supervisor Kubarski?
Well, I don't mean to be dense, but sometimes I just can't help it. But when we're talking about this types of things, and we have the old clinic building up there, which deals with the drug addictions and so forth. And I mean, are we getting, it's not that I'm opposed to this, that's not the point. The point is, are we getting duplication with these programs, and how many programs actually do we need, or, you know, what good are they? So.
Well, in this program we can only spend the opioid funds on certain items, right? And this is going to be one of those programs that would qualify. I know there was a article in the current Wisconsin Counties Association magazine this last month talking about programs like this, and that treatment is better than incarceration and in trying to get those people on the right path. So go ahead, Human Service Director.
I would just mention that peer support is very different than formal treatment. So it used to be the Russia Cree Recovery Center. They're now called Noble Clinic. That's very formal treatment. So that's your substance abuse addiction treatment. It's your counseling. Peer support is kind of that in between of less formal, but far more impactful in the sense of having someone to help you navigate formal resources. As far as having any peer support resources in the community right now on a formal basis, all we have is what's being offered to very few select people through treatment court, because they're not able to serve anyone other than the treatment court participants. That's per grant standards. The other peer support that we have in the community is very limited. Like the sheriff mentioned, there's an NA group in the jail. And then we have someone who's offering a recovery meeting, but it's very limited. So this would actually be able to bring in that programming into the community on a more formal basis.
Supervisor Paler.
Okay, I guess, like Bob said, I'm certainly not against this either, but I would like to know, what do we know about this Three Bridges, about their track record? How long have they been around? Nothing's been said about them yet.
Human Service Director, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, I can.
Sure.
I know that. They're located up in Wisconsin Rapids. They are in the Wood County Jail, Clark County Jail, Marathon County, and I believe most recently Columbia County Jail. And so that's for me, that's important because of just letting the people into the jail. We know that they have a well-established background, and with the jail inmate programming, and that's the peer support, the SMART inside out programming. And I do know we had a presentation from the executive director on how long they've been around, but I'm not finding that information, but it has been a number of years. Maybe Kelly can help me out here with that.
She's been in the program for at least 8 years. They're well established. We had a treatment court conference last week, and Three Bridges was a presenter at the conference. They're well established. I don't want to speak for programming that's happening in Wood County or anything like that, but there has been such a success with the programming with Three Bridges that they are looking at a huge expansion within their jail to provide additional resources from Three Bridges for the current inmate population, because it's a great time to capture someone's attention. You're incarcerated and you're starting to have a forced period of sobriety, and being able to bring in a resource and someone they can connect to really make that forced sobriety turn into recovery is great.
What is the committee's pleasure?
I'll make a motion that to utilize opioid settlement money for peer support pilot program.
Edwards seconds.
Okay, motion to move the resolution forward to county board. Discussion. Supervisor Kubarski.
To follow up on something Jerry said earlier, should having a sunset clause in here wouldn't that be appropriate? I mean, right
It's
now,
asking for 3 years only.
so that's kind of takes care of itself. That's fine, I guess.
As a pilot program, right? Okay.
Mr.
Counsel.
Chair, Supervisor Grabarski, when I review contracts, one of the things I always look for is to make sure that we have an escape clause. So if a program is not working out, we can give, 30 days or 60 days notice or whatever it might be, depending on the contractor, and discontinue the program. So I will make sure to do that in this case.
Yeah. Supervisor Paler.
What do we use as a groundwork, whether it's working or not?
Well, I know the Health and Human Resources Director said that they were going to formulate some metrics to help us. So those metrics aren't designed yet, but go ahead if you want to.
So some of the metrics we want to use and figure out, we want to make sure we keep people anonymous, right? Reaching out for help. This way, we want to make sure that they don't feel like they're going to be penalized for reaching out for help. But I think we want to keep track of how many people have reached out for help, how long have they maintained in that program, did they access formal treatment, what did their recovery look like. I feel like we're going to be able to gather information that supports or doesn't support the effectiveness of the program. And we'll certainly have that metric in place prior to starting the program.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay. Motion passes. The resolution will be sent on to county board. Next item is animal control.
John?
Yeah.
Just an interesting note, if I might, for a second. About 2 days ago, I had an interesting conversation with a person that I've got to know that had a real bad drug problem, and he was into some of the really bad stuff. And he said the only way he could get clean was he had to get rid of all his friends. He had to completely change the people he knew. Otherwise, he could have never gotten clean.
So.
Yes, I didn't drive
Okay. Animal control, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really no handout, just a discussion at this point. So I've been touching on this subject in my monthly reports, memos, and at the Wisconsin Towns Association for a while now. And I'm looking into increasing code enforcement in the planning and zoning department, their budget for 2026, making a part-time position in that department to a full-time position, thus increasing code enforcement. And also increasing the planning and zoning budget to include an animal control officer. And that would be a contracted position that would service the entire county. And moving from the sheriff's budget, the intake fees, which is roughly about $30,000 a year, over to the planning and zoning department. My hope is to have the municipals, all the municipalities, work with the county in sharing with the intake fees, because the intake fees are being driven by the animals that are actually being brought to the Humane Society. So it makes sense that the municipalities that are pretty much driving the higher numbers also contribute to this cost, in that the county is taking on a large portion of animal control overall, with the intake fees, the animal control officer, and then also code enforcement now. If something isn't worked out with the municipalities in a share type program, I'm going to have to look into the statutes a little further to see just where the responsibility lies. What I get from the statutes, it just refers to animal control officer, and that officer is responsible for, intakes. And I guess that's why the sheriff's department was, and that's before this sheriff, where the patrol was actually doing that function. So that is officially going away January 1, 2026, that our patrol is no longer taking animals, unless it's a seizure, right, Sheriff? Something falls in that line or that, okay, he's shaking his head, yes. So that's where I am. It's just a discussion item so that when this comes up as part of the budget process that, you've heard it, you've read about it, and then I'm also sharing the Wisconsin Towns Association. There's some of you that attend that as well. So just a matter that's going to be a discussion further. That's all.
Supervisor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is, you said two things here. You want a full-time code person, and then you also want a contracted person for animal control. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, it seemed like they were being melded together, but I want to make sure one is one and one is the other.
Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
So code enforcement right now that lies in that department is a half-time position that's dedicated to Quincy. And so that position would become a full-time position. Then expanding into countywide code enforcement. Part of that code enforcement will be the animal license code enforcement. Okay. Animal control officer is the one that would actually be picking up the animal for intake, and it'll be on an on-call basis. And they used to reside in the sheriff's office long ago. And I believe that process would be hard to manage, and that, you know, if you have a part-time position, they're working 20 hours, how do you manage that when you maybe have 3 calls during a week or other calls? But so it'll be on an on-call basis, contracted position.
So when you say code, so if the animal control officer gets called out to take care of a dog and doesn't have a license, then the code officer would follow up and issue that code violation. That's what that is.
Yes, and or the neighbors can also manage their neighbors.
Okay,
Those are the best code enforcement officers,
okay, thanks. All
unofficial.
right. I do think this is a good idea.
Okay. Then we'll move on to reports. Project status report is there. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. Treasurer's report is there. Ms. Dozel is online. If there's any questions on the report. Okay, next we'll move on to IT. One area I wanted to talk about was we had discussed in the county board meeting about the owl, and it came up again, and Rich wasn't at the last admin and finance meeting. So Rich, if you want to talk about that a little bit. And
Yes, Mr. Chair. So as you can see, I added some extra page there for the owl is a standalone device. It's meant to cover a smaller area. Would not be conducive for this room or would not integrate with our current system. We spent $48,000 in 2022 to implement the current system. And at that time, the decision was made that we did not need to see individual participants. It would probably be another $30,000 to $40,000 if we wanted to implement that into this system. It's not just as simple as putting a camera, replacing one camera in the room. It would have to be integrated into the system so that ideally it's a speaker call up when somebody's microphone is turned on, the camera would point at them. That's probably the best way to handle that in a room of this size. And I just don't see that it's conducive at this time to do that. And I did show as well the YouTube statistics for the number of views that we have of the meetings. And if you look at those, for example, the March 2025 County Board, 578 views, 22 peak viewers at 15 an average, and their average view duration is 17 minutes of a 2-hour meeting. You know, so we don't have the numbers to really show that the public is watching these meetings continuously. A lot of the average view times are pretty low.
Supervisor Kubarski.
Yeah, first I'd like to compliment Rich for putting this out and giving us a chance to view it ahead of time. Certainly is a good explanation on why it's not feasible. And as I look down at the views from the county board, I mean, we have 12 to 15 people that actually look at it for 12 to 15 minutes. And to me, that doesn't justify any of this. So I appreciate getting this ahead of time so we got a chance to review it. Thanks, Rich.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I've had comments after that meeting, and I mean, normally I try to announce everybody that's speaking, so people know who is speaking at the meeting, so I don't know if that helps or not. I mean, we can have more discussion at the county board level if we want, or if we wanted, everybody could log into their iPad and you'll see who's talking or at that time, but I don't know if it's warranted or not. So Supervisor Pease.
My question is, when we talk about views and peak and average time, I think a lot of times people, after hearing what happened at a meeting, they may just go in there to look at what somebody said or how they said it or the inflection in their voice or whatever, instead of reviewing the whole meeting. They're only doing sections of it. That would pull that average down compared to somebody who sat online the whole night and watched the whole thing. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe Rich, you can tell me if that brings down that average a little bit, or does that not figure into this?
No, that's a valid point, Supervisor Pease. Something I hadn't really thought about, that a lot of people probably do go into the meeting to find this particular spot. So that would show you, that would explain the time frame of why it's shorter.
I think we should continue to monitor this a little bit and see if that viewership goes up a little bit, or maybe that time duration. I mean, I don't think we can do anything now, but I think that in the future, if it continues to rise, maybe we should look at something.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Human Resources reports.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
Director.
Carol wasn't able to make it
Okay.
today. She had some personal stuff come up. I believe this is the same report as last month. She said there was nothing unusual to report on, and she's gonna provide a report for the last 2 months at the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to County Clerk's report.
Any questions?
Okay, seeing,
Page 2. Okay. I had looked at it. I remember I had a question, but I don't remember what it is at this point. So I guess we just let it go.
okay, Corp Counsel.
As I read several items on the report month after month, I have highlighted in blue,
Excuse me, can she turn her mic on?
She's walking around right now. So
Okay,
maybe just wait for your comments till you get up. She's passing around a written report. Supervisor Edwards.
thank you.
She won't be able to see it.
I'll touch base with her after the meeting.
Okay.
I will email a copy to you, Supervisor Edwards. So because I have several items on my report month after month, I decided to do any updates in blue so you can tell kind of what's new. I will just highlight mental commitments are up pretty significantly over last year. The Barnum Bay Beach and Marina LLC versus Adams County Board of Adjustment that went to the circuit court and was sent back down to the Board of Adjustment has been resolved. The BOA met in April and reversed their previous decision, meaning they granted the permit to Barnum Beach and Marina. So there should not be any reason for that litigation to continue. The treasurer has just within the last week or two, gotten a list of properties that need to be sold and also has begun the process of signing up to sell those properties on Wisconsin. I forgot the name. You all know it. Surplus. Yeah, thank you. So I'm in the process of verifying that her property list is correct. And there is part of the listing contract that I need to fill out because she wasn't, it's more of legal things that she wasn't sure what to put in. So I've been working on that over the last couple of days, and I expect by next week, she and I will have that finalized and those properties will be listed with Wisconsin Surplus. Wisconsin Act 235, which is the Judicial Privacy Protection Act, did go into effect on April 1st. And Miranda Christensen and I met with one of the judges regarding, met with one of the judges per their request to discuss it. And the GOAT open records request, the biggest lift is with Health and Human Services. I think there were only one or two other departments who had anything at all that needs to be sent to the GOAT committee, but HHS has quite a bit. So Kelly Olson and I met last week, I believe. No, actually, it might have been this Monday, to go over her questions, and I expect to be able to conclude that open records request and get it to the state legislature within the next week or two. And finally, obviously, Resolution 2025-12 was passed Tuesday night. I've been in touch with Atoles every day since, and we're working on the next steps. Any questions?
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Finance Director?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yep, so I've got the quarterly report attached. This is for activity for January to March of this year. Lane, if you scroll to the next page, this is reporting the general fund revenues. So any revenues that are below 25%, you'll see a comment on those. And there's really not too many revenues that are concerning at this point. The late fees on the taxes and the treasurer's fees, you're going to notice that those are lower, and if the trend continues, that we may be under budget for those revenues. However, we are receiving significant interest income, so that should offset those lower late fees and treasurer fees. If you keep scrolling, that's the end of the revenues. And then next one is expenses. Any expenses that are over 25%, there's going to be a comment on. There's really no, nothing to highlight on the expenses though. So if there's any questions on the quarterly report, I can take those right now.
Okay.
And this is-
Seeing none.
And this is the monthly written report. If there's any questions, I can take those. And lastly, the ARPA report. I don't believe there's been any activity since last month.
Supervisor Kubarski?
Yeah, thanks. Kyle, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I guess it's not. God damn, I'm gosh darn.
Okay. Yes. Supervisor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because fleet vehicles are on here, I guess I'm gonna ask a question. Is this part of the 2 or 3 year cycle you said we were gonna be on and be able to look at the purchases were going to be better if we turn cars in faster? Do we have any idea if that's happening, or what is the plan going forward, I guess?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, so we did get 2 fleet vehicles delivered this week for the maintenance department, and we're planning on listing the ones that we're rotating out onto Wisconsin surplus. We do have data put together for the fleet vehicles for what we paid for them, how long they were in service, and then how much they sold for. This is going to be the first time that we're cycling them out in about 2 years only.
Okay,
For this grouping of vehicles here.
so we'll know once you get them sold, but you haven't sold them yet, so,
Correct.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, county administrator then?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. So the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be off on vacation. Doesn't mean that you can't contact me. I'm always connected. So know you can still reach out to me. So in the report, start out with accolades, and the sheriff and his team received Lexipol Connect Gold again this year. I believe this is the 3rd year in a row. Maryland's retirement potluck is today at noon. And today is officially Maryland's official last day. Going into projects, phase 2 is still with the engineers at this point. Veterans Memorial, there's a shared hope that the project takes shape this year. Don't know what take shape means, but hopefully that means completion. And remember, most of that work is volunteer, so there's only so much push that we can do on that. And then I give you an update on some of the highway projects. And here is a write-up on the last opioid work group. This is where I said I had some documents that were attached for review. And then again, it reflects on the resolution that you guys passed earlier on the agenda. And then I touch on 2 community events that took place. And then down below, I touch on the canine accounting because this was a matter that was brought up on the board floor. So I thought I'd touch on it in my research a little bit lower. Right there, called out in blue. This is the official opinion from our outside auditors. And their take on it is that the accounting that we're doing for the canine program is appropriate. And that's all I have, unless there's questions.
Supervisor Pease?
I went to Reality Days for a little while. What a program they put on. It's excellent. Janet and her staff have done an excellent job. It's nice to see as many county workers there as I did see, all engaged with kids. High school kids alone seem to be really involved this year compared to other years. So it's a great program, and I'm glad to, hopefully it'll continue.
Mr. Chair, this is Marge.
Yes, Supervisor Edwards, go ahead.
I just have a couple comments. I agree with Rick on the Reality Days. I've been involved with it except for this past year, and it's a very successful program. And then on the Veterans Memorial, I spoke with somebody that's on that committee, and their hope is to have it done by Veterans Day. So that's the latest.
So, okay, thank you, Supervisor Edwards. Okay, seeing nothing else, next meeting date, June. Sixth. Okay, yeah, 9 o'clock, hopefully. Okay, that concludes the open part of the meeting. I'd entertain the committee to convene in closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 1985, Paren 1, Paren C, for the purposes considering employment, promotion, or compensation or performance evaluation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. Consider job description contract for the county administrator. Motion to go into closed session by Supervisor Kubarski, second by Supervisor Paylor. Roll call vote. Supervisor Pease, Supervisor Kubarski,
Yes.
Supervisor Paylor,
Yes.
Supervisor West is yes. So we're in closed session. So yeah, we're shutting down all the online. So